Welcome, everyone, another episode of Back and Forth with Becker and Orr. Kevin and I are ready to go. You can see all the topics at the bottom of the screen there, including the lead-off topic. Did we have a stealth correction in the stock market? We're going to tackle that. You want to stick around.
Yes, a variety of topics today, and it covers the wide bounds. We're going from one extreme to the next, as we can do anyway. Every time you want, take a look at this. There's more back and forth. You can visit our website at beckerorr.com. You can go to our YouTube channel, or you can like us on Facebook to get all of this or any of the other Financial 15s and the videos we've produced. So please, if you get a chance, go and see it. Clint, let us start with what is a stealth correction, and have we been in one for a while now?
Yeah, this is coming out of a couple of factors here. I'll pull up the chart from JC Peret's All-Star Charts, and you got the New York Stock Exchange Composite on the top there, the NASDAQ 100 on the bottom, both of them showing stock markets at record levels. The blue lines are going up, but you can see the red below there. It shows the average drawdown. So for the New York Stock Exchange, record levels, but the average drawdown is 16.9%. So most stocks are going down, even though the index is going up. You look at the NASDAQ 100, which is all the big tech stocks, record levels, average drawdown 10.1%. What is going on here, Kevin?
Yeah, so as we can see, this is not a broad market participation that's going on by any stretch of the imagination. The average number of stocks down is there. So we have been seeing a correction in that. So unless you've basically held the big names in the New York, unless you've held the big names in the NASDAQ, you're not making that kind of money. We are seeing that things have come down slightly. There has been that correction. Money can flow into these if and when we start to see things going forward. But you're right. This is one of the things that people don't look at. They just see, well, we're at an all-time high. Everything must be up. That's definitely not the case here. And I don't think it's going to be the case for a while yet. We had a really great run in the end of 2020 into 2021. But as we're seeing, things have started to level off and they're starting to have a little bit of a peel back because things have gone up from there. What else can we add on the stealth correction?
Yeah, and part of it is just isn't to be fearful and say, oh, the stealth correction market's going to drop. Not the case. The big ones here, the big companies can hold up the market for a period of time. We've seen that in the past. Also, this has been a year of rotation, right? We've gone from the tech companies early in the year. They kind of peaked mid-February. Then you had that resurgence of what we'll call the value companies, the reopening companies. That kind of hit a peak in May, June. And now we're seeing the big tech companies kind of lead the charge. So it's very possible that the tech companies fall off and one of these other sectors, other sections just kind of pick up the baton. We've seen that throughout 2021, and we could see more of that rotation going forward. So at the moment, a stealth correction, but it doesn't mean the market just falls apart. We could see more rotation going forward. Does that make sense?
I think that's perfect. That describes exactly what we're doing. We're dealing with low breadth and we're dealing with a variety of different options. So that's one thing we have to take a look at. Moving forward, though, let's get to the Olympics. We finally just completed the 2020 Tokyo Olympics in 2021. Not to put it that way, but Canada came out with a record number of medals for a non-boycotted Olympics at 24. And as you see on the chart there, we've moved up to 11th in the world for the number of medals that we got sort of in that scenario. And of course, they mark it usually by golds as opposed to total medals, but that's something to see. What were some of the highlights for what we did in the Olympics here that we hadn't done before?
Yeah, this was fantastic across the board for Canada. To be honest, after that first week, I was a little skeptical of our outcome, but we had a very strong finish when it came to the medal haul. We had quite a few medals in the back half of the Olympics, and there's so many stories that came out of it. You can talk about Penny Alexiak, you can talk about Andre DeGrasse, you can talk about the decathlete that set the record. I mean, just across the board, there are lots of positive stories for Canada. And normally we're seen as a winter nation, a company we can do quite well in the Winter Olympics, and now we're showing we can get equal number of medals in the Summer Olympics as well. So I think it's fantastic for Canadian sports.
Yeah, it really is. And I mean, not only that, I mean, we got a lot of these medals that are there, but there was a lot of fourth place finishes that Canada had as well, whether it's in rowing, whether it was in the swimming pool or things along those lines. So we are coming along. It's just that for being a nation that sort of is a smaller size and coordinates, that's been it. And you're right. As you mentioned, Penny Alexiak, the most heavily decorated Canadian female athlete, and Andre DeGrasse, the most heavily decorated Canadian athlete now for medals. That's been perfect. Yeah. Everything's gone well. And let's see if how this can continue next year into Beijing and forward into Paris 3 years down the road. I know it should be 4. Now that we've done the Olympics, let's talk about seasonality in the market. This is something a lot of people don't look at, but something that should we consider and should be concerned about?
Yeah, I'm not sure how high I'd put this on my priority list, but something to keep in mind. Certainly, it is information to consider. In this particular table, this chart, it was done by Carter Braxton Worth. It looks at the S&P 500 in the U.S. and it looks at 3-month intervals. It's all right. What if we look at December, January, February? What about April, May, June? Different 3-month combinations, and the worst performance, because you looked at the 3-month combination and looked at how the markets have performed during that time frame in the past. The absolute worst, bottom of the barrel, August, September, October. You can see the average performance is negative, the median performance essentially flat. And that's where we are right now, Kevin. We're entering a seasonally weak time in the market. Are you concerned? What are you doing about it?
No, and again, I think that this is something that we see each and every year that we move forward. The reason it's there is because they've done this study for a while. Typically, summer becomes more of a light scenario. There's not as much trading volume. Everybody's away on vacation, golf, the whole 9 yards is what you're doing. You come back into September, everybody goes back to school. You haven't checked your portfolio maybe in 3 or 4 months because it's been summer. Oh no, maybe things are high, I want to get out, and then you lead that right through to October. And then all of a sudden you get that Christmas rally starting October, November, December, and things just sort of ease up. So yeah, I think it's something that it's just an interesting number to deal with. But yeah, I don't think that the 3-month period should change what the view of your investments is going forward by any stretch. Any comments on that?
Yeah. I mean, it's something to keep in mind. We're in a seasonal weakness. We're in the weakest part historically for the market, that 3-month stretch. But yes, I wouldn't go sell everything in my portfolio and make big changes simply because we're in that seasonal weak pattern. And again, those are also averages. So there are some years where it's worse, some years where it's better. And I imagine the years where it's worse have been kind of pulling down the overall average. You probably have a number of years in there where it's flat or a small positive, where things are just fine. So you have to keep that in mind as well. So seasonality on the list, something you may have heard in the news, but not something I personally would incorporate into my decision-making process there. But also something that's in the news here, Kevin. How's that for a segue? We're talking about the Canadian election, the speculation that we have an election on the horizon. You think it's coming?
Well, I mean, we could get it announced as early as, say, 2 weeks down the road from now. I mean, this has been itching its way for a while. Every time you see the Liberals' numbers go up in the polls, they want to get closer to an election. Why? They have a minority. They'd like a majority. So if things have gone well and things look better, why not call an election now? If things start to turn the other way, that may be delayed. There's a variety of different options there for why this is going on. I do believe that we will get an election sooner rather than later, and it probably will happen before the end of this year. But there are a few things to consider. Stuff along the lines of pensions. You want to get into any of those sort of scenarios?
Yeah, if you want to be speculative and you're not, don't hold politicians in the greatest regard, this will probably be right up your alley. Pensions for the federal government, you have to be in power for 6 years and then you get a full pension. And the Liberals got majority in 2015, and then they had some folks obviously stay in power with the last election. So this October would be year number 6. So in my opinion, the likelihood that they hold an election prior to that probably seems low. I think October or beyond, that way they'd have a full pension, would make some sense. And then all the factors you mentioned as well. You're coming out of COVID for the most part across Canada, so there's probably going to be a bit of relief there. And they're also riding higher in the polls. So a number of reasons why we might see an election in the fall.
And I would agree with that completely. And again, what are the big issues are going to be too? I mean, normally you talk about the economy, how things are going along this time. Are we going to deal strictly with COVID this time? Is where is things going to be coming from? Are we dealing with more of, are we going to open up? Are we going to close and things along those lines? I think there's going to be a lot more variety of things on the table this time to talk about when they start debating and things along those lines than they have beforehand. But now that we've sort of covered the election in a general nutshell, let's get to our question. You and I are both big Marvel fans. There's no doubt about it. You've seen it. I've seen it. Black Widow, I hear, is suing Disney. And there's a reason for it. What is the impact of what's going to go on here, Clint?
Yeah, this is quite the story. So Scarlett Johansson, the actress that plays Black Widow, of course, Black Widow movie just came out in terms of the pandemic era as a smashing success. And she is suing Walt Disney because Disney released it in theaters at the same time they did on their streaming platforms. You didn't actually have to go to the theater to watch it. You could buy it through the streaming platform. Well, Scarlett Johansson, her bonus is based off of the sales in the theater. And her argument here is, well, if you did the streaming platform, that takes away from the sales in the theater. My bonus is down. That's impacted my pay. That's kind of the lawsuit in a nutshell here. I'm a little surprised it got to this stage. This seems like someone at Disney would have reached out and said, hey, by the way, we're going to do this streaming model at the same time as the movie theater model. Let's renegotiate your salary. That obviously didn't happen, and now we are in the mix of a lawsuit.
Well, I guess it all comes down to the fact of where's the money, right? Who's making enough?
Yeah.
Disney, if they're not getting enough now, the streaming service doing this, well, maybe she won't notice that little clause in her contract that we're dealing with here. But yeah, I didn't think that was going to pass by any stretch of the imagination. You're right. I had assumed that somebody might reach out for this scenario. I do believe that this will all get settled out of court. I don't think either one of these two parties wants it going any further. And I think that there will be clauses put in new contracts going forward that, we will give you a proceeding of what we're making online as well as what we're making off of the theater scenario. But yeah, it is interesting to see that, COVID has created a whole bunch of different scenarios as to what's going on with how things get released in the theaters and whether or not it's going to be released at the same time elsewhere, or how quickly it can go to what used to be video and the scenarios along those lines. But definitely something that I think everybody's going to have to take a look at. And the only guys that really make the most money out of this are going to be the lawyers as they negotiate everything. So something that we should consider ourselves from there. Other than that, I think that's a perfect scenario. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't think Disney's business model is going to go away. I think they've had some success with their streaming. I think they like the fact that they can release it to Disney Plus subscribers for an extra cost. So I think they're going to figure this out. And I agree with you. Future contracts will probably have it written in there so that they don't have to change their streaming business model. But we'll leave it there for now. As always, if someone has a question, whether it's for Kevin or for me, or hey, maybe you have a topic we didn't cover, or you really like Black Widow, open to all the topics. You can catch us at chatwithclintonandkevin.com. Always happy to hear from you. Any parting comments for folks, Kevin?
No, you summed it up perfectly. There's nothing else I can add on top of that one. So other than that, I would say have a good day, and we will be back again soon.
Take care.